So I have 10 more cards from this banger expansion that I want to show you, and I want to get your opinion on it.
All right. So this is a landmark 2-mana Crimson Banquet Hall. What is this for Noxus? Yeah.
Noxus.
Ally cost 1 less when you play an ally, deal 2 damage to it. Oh my god. Okay. I'll tell you what. In Hearthstone, this card would see play in warrior decks, in specific warrior decks. At specific points in time. Maybe not now, but this would actually probably be a good card in Hearthstone. In Runeterra, this is very interesting. Allies cost 1 less when you play an ally. Can you at least tell me if they got, Noxus got some minions that benefit from dealing damage to him or taking damage? Sorry.
Yeah. Vladimir did get rotated, but we just had like the Eternal season, which is, I guess, in Hearthstone terms, if you had like a season where the only thing that mattered was the wild format. In Runeterra, it's pretty well balanced. It was really fun. Okay. So yeah, this synergized with Vladimir and all his minions.
I'm gonna say it's good just because I think in Hearthstone, this card's good. So it's probably a pretty good landmark. The fact that you don't even like, it doesn't really have a durability or anything. It's just there for the rest of the game until like something interacts with it. It's probably going to be very useful at some point. So I would imagine that this was played and probably good.
No, it's pretty bad.
Oh,
it's used in really specific combo decks, and they are so open to removal that is like, it's either like you auto win or you auto lose, but most of the time you auto lose because there's just a lot of ways to interact with it.
Let me say something real fast. There is a card in Hearthstone called Risky Skipper. It was a 1-mana 1/3, and the card said after you play an ally, deal 1 damage to everything. That card was the best card that Warrior has ever received, but probably top 3. I don't know if it's the best one,
okay.
But it fundamentally made a tier S deck. Just that card on its own. So it's surprising me that this is bad because you also get the mana cheating with it.
Yeah, it's okay. Do you remember last time I showed you a card called Swindler's Den, which said all your cards are fleeting, but every time you play a card, you draw one?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So there was a deck, but again, it's so bad because that was a 6-mana landmark, and if that landmark gets removed, you auto lose. But basically what that did is you just ran a deck with 1,000,000 1-cost units. You would play them for 1 less mana, so for 0, you would play them. They would die instantly because of the Banquet Hall, but they just existed so you could draw your combo pieces. Yeah, again,
that's
you kind of go
fun.
infinite. Yeah, it's fun, but it's bad.
Quick question for you. You showed me a card last time that was like, you can't take damage or something.
Some monument, yeah.
Is that card still in the game?
Yeah, it got nerfed. It got hard nerfed because back then it said it's 3 mana, and every time you take 1 damage, you shuffle 4 shrooms. It got increased to 4 mana, so 1 mana nerf, and it said 5 shrooms instead of 4, and it was still broken.
Yeah, what? Dang. Yeah, that card's pretty nutty. I had to scroll back up just to read it again. Yeah, I remember why. Okay, sorry, I just had to double check if that card was still good or not.
When we recorded like a month ago, we were still in the standard season. We went to Eternal season, and Eternal season does have a card that replaces your entire deck with new cards. I think there's a card in Hearthstone called like Angora or something like that. Yeah. So we have a card like that would just like replace your deck entirely with actual like pretty good cards that synergize with the deck. 20 of them, and that would also get rid of all the shrooms that were in your deck.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
People used to run like tech cards to play around like Bomb Warrior when that was like really popular in Hearthstone. That's kind of fun. I'm not sure if that's actually a winning play in Runeterra. Just
it is. It won it won the Eternal Open season, like the tournament. So
wow,
yeah,
look at that. Good. That's sick. Okay, cool. Good design from the Runeterra team.
Yeah, definitely. We love it when players are invulnerable.
Safe and sound.
All right, another landmark.
What the hell is this? I just didn't have a face. Valley of Imitation. Oh, it makes sense. Okay. Shurima, 3 mana. When you play a follower, transform me into an exact copy of it this round. I retain granted buffs. Oh, so it's the first follower you play in the round.
Yes.
It turns into that, and then at the end of the turn, it turns back into the Valley of Imitation.
Correct. Yes.
Whatever follower this turns into, this can also attack with it. Interesting. This is kind of Hearthstone actually has a card that's really similar to this. And it's a location, so it's almost the same landmark of this. It was just printed for Warlock. And it's like summon a minion with the same health and attack as a minion you have in play and give it rush. And that card's very good. If the minion that it imitates, if it imitates a minion and then that minion dies, does it turn back into the Valley of Imitation?
No, then the landmark is gone too.
Oh, okay. Thank God I clarified that because I thought it was going to go back. God, I want to say it's still pretty good. I would imagine it's pretty good. It's good. It has to be good. This is a good card.
Yeah, it is a good card. It's really specific with the cards you play with. There are some like cute combos where you have like a card that you summon, Valley of Imitation transforms into it, and then that has like an attack effect where it says like, when I attack, give everything +1 health, and then the next time you summon a unit, because it keeps the buffs, the next unit you summon and the Valley of Imitation turns into also gets that buff. But there is a really degenerate combo deck. I'm going to show you the card that works with it right now.
Oh, a Cobra. It's a wow. I like how they put reptile on the top.
Yeah, just in case you weren't sure, it is a reptile.
Each round, this first time you summon another follower, summon an exact copy of it. If your board is full, granted stats and keywords to me instead.
Yeah,
Well, that's exciting.
so what happens is if you just have the landmark on board, the Valley of Imitation, and you play the Cobra, you literally instantly get a board with 6 Cobras. That's how that works.
Oh, that's so. Is that like that's a real deck?
That's
like
a real
that
deck. Yes, that is a real deck. But we just got new expansion, so nobody wants to play like the lame combo deck that was good a little while ago. But yes, that is a real deck.
Yo, that is that just game over if that gets played? That actually seems pretty nutty.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, game over. It can happen once a round. So what will happen the next turn is they'll summon a unit with like Elusive or Overwhelm, and because of this last part of the card, grant its stats and keywords to me instead. If your board is full, you literally will get like a board full of just like big Overwhelm Cobras that also have bigger stats. It's almost unbeatable once they get to that point.
Oh my god, that sounds exciting. And of course, it's from Ionia. Isn't that your favorite?
I love Ionia. Yeah, they can stop you if you try to interact with them too, so they always win. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, cool cards, man. I like the Valley card. That's really nice. All right, what do we got here? Bursting Backpack. 1 mana burst spell for Bandle. For each Bursting Backpack you play this game, plant 4 chimes in your deck and 4 poison puff caps in the enemy deck. Then you create a backpack in your deck. 4 chimes in your decks. Is chimes still the same thing as before?
Yeah, when you draw them, you give a unit in your hand +1/+1.
And how many copies of this can you run? 3?
3, yes.
You always get another one. This is really interesting. I would think that this is probably more on the meme side of things. This is difficult to actually imagine that it's going to win you the game unless you draw. Like the variance of this card is pretty ridiculous, right? It's the classic, it's the chime debate like last time, right? If you draw the chimes in the early game, it's probably pretty nutty. But if you don't, like you're kind of just wasting cards and just hoping that you end up drawing the chimes. Because like the poison puff caps, I don't know how great they really are as a win condition. I've never personally seen anybody win a game with the poison puff caps when I played Runeterra, so I'm not like super optimistic on this. But it's a fun meme deck. Like I think this is a content card for the most part, right? You're just hoping that this wins you the game and you high roll. So I'm gonna say on average this probably isn't great, but yeah, no, on average it's probably not that great. It's probably like, it's not horrible though.
Okay, so this did get printed during the updraft expansion. You know, you can shuffle cards back to hope you draw the bursting backpack. But yeah, no, it's still a meme. Okay. I'll just give you that one. There is another card that I didn't show you for Janna. It's a 5 mana landmark that says updraft your entire hand and draw that many cards +1. I made a deck with this card that just keeps like replacing your hand +1 every single turn, discounts everything. It was still a meme, but it you know, it functioned like 40% of the time, which was also the win rate of the deck. But you know,
they've tried to do stuff like this in Hearthstone before. Actually, you know what's really funny is like there's kind of a mechanic like this right now. They put plagues in Death Knight, which is basically, they all have their own individual effect. There's 3 different types of them, but when you draw them, you take 2 damage, and then your opponent gets the benefit because they're shuffling them into your deck. Yeah. But the problem with that deck is your opponent just may not draw them, so it kind of just feels bad majority of the time. And if they don't draw them, you're kind of like, okay, how do I win the game? Hello? Is anyone there? So yeah, that's where I think that kind of helped me out with this one. But you're right. If with the updraft stuff, it's probably potentially better. Imagine if they didn't print that mechanic.
Do you think that Bomb Warrior was a successful archetype because of that? Because the deck had more going on than just shuffling bombs. It was like, oh, this is nice when it happens.
Oh, I think Bomb Warrior was really good because Control Warrior has an archetype to delay the game, right? Yeah. So it wasn't about, it was more like getting to the inevitability rather than hoping that your opponent draws them. The problem with Death Knight right now is, I think I showed you Death Knight cards, but they have like the rune system. So you can only build specifically based on how you're doing your runes. And the runes that they picked for Plague really limit what the deck can do, because I think they didn't want Bomb Warrior to happen again. Because if they changed the rune system slightly to favor more blood, which is like the more control, it probably would have been a lot better. But currently, because you can't just like delay the game forever, it kind of doesn't feel nearly as good.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
I like that. I do like the archetype though, just to explain that. I think when Bomb Warrior was good, it was fun to play with.
Yeah. It feels satisfying when they actually do draw the bomb.
Skip King of the Reef, sorry, King of the Reef. This is a Disney character. What the hell is this? Why does he have like a title in quotations? 2 mana, 1/2 play. Pick 1 of 2 non-champion cards from the enemy hand and capture it. What does that mean?
So you look at the cards in your opponent's hand. You get 2 that you can pick from. Skip kind of just like, yeah, capture. It's just like, I'm trying to find out how to phrase this. The cards are inside him, basically. So when he dies, the card goes back to their hands.
Okay, so unironically, Hearthstone actually has a card like this too. It's a rogue secret called Kidnap, and kind of like, not like exactly the same because you don't get to pick the card, but the next time your opponent plays a minion, it's stuffed in a sack, and then you have to kill the sack to get it back into your hand.
Yeah.
That card's not great. God, it's a 2-mana 1/2 elusive, so it is a little bit more annoying to deal with. God, this is actually a really difficult one because it comes down to how annoying is it to deal with an elusive character, and how relevant is taking a card from your opponent's hand. Also for what? This is Bandle City?
Yep.
God, I don't know. This is tough. I'm gonna assume that it's probably okay. Is it good? I don't think it's good. Well, okay, hold on. It's probably okay to like fine. But I don't think this is like meta warping. I don't also think it's a bad card, but I think this is like kind of like a techish card, right? It's hard to really analyze this card in a vacuum, because I'd have to see how impactful this actually is of taking a card from your opponent and seeing what that like in Runeterra. But I would say this is probably fine. Like it probably sees play.
This card's bad. This card sees 0 play. And I'll be honest, when this got revealed, I was like, oh, this is broken. Like this is easily like extremely broken. Removal and card draw, like you said, aren't like super accessible all the time in Runeterra. So it's like, imagine that Skip takes a removal card from your opponent, and then they have to use like a subpar card to remove Skip to get their good removal back or something, right? Like their efficient removal. But it's only 2-mana 1/2 elusive, so there is just no real place for a card like this in a deck that is currently seeing play.
Yeah, I think the other really big problem with this card is just you can get the card back. It's like delayed, like getting the card, right? Which sometimes that it may be the difference of you actually winning or losing the game, but for the most part, like it's so early on in the game that it's probably not going to be that relevant as the game goes on.
Yeah, if you time it well, it can definitely win you the game. But I feel like as a 2-mana 1/2 elusive, it just doesn't really get there unless you buff this card, and a deck like that just doesn't exist right now. So if there was like a deck that can use elusives and buff it up, I imagine this card would be very good. We just don't have it right now.
All right, Watery Grave. Oh, this guy's fucked. The guy in the boat, it's over for him. 3 mana for Shadow Isles. Obliterate 6 cards from the bottom of the enemy deck. Okay, I'll tell you this right now. This is a very controversial topic in Hearthstone. People don't like when their deck is burned without their control. Obliterate, I guess, means just like completely remove the cards, right? I don't know the rest of the expansion, but unless there is a big enough payoff for destroying cards in your opponent's deck, this card's probably not that great.
We have Maokai. Maokai, I don't think I've ever showed you Maokai. Maokai, when he levels, removes every card in the opponent's deck except 4.
So you play Maokai and then you play this?
Yeah.
And then your opponent's nothing?
Yeah, basically.
And then I can't remember, when you get to fatigue in Runeterra, does the game end, or is it?
You lose. It's over.
Okay, I stand by what I said, but if the Maokai strategy is good, then this card's playable because you just win the game. Like the game's over. Like that's just a combo piece. So if that combo is good, then this is good. But I would think in a vacuum, this card isn't great.
Okay, so the Maokai strategy, there is a deck, Nautilus and Maokai. I think it's actually one of the most famous decks in the game. And the concept of the deck is you're tossing cards out of your deck, your own deck, because Nautilus and sea monsters, when you have 15 or less cards in your deck, they get like +3/+3 Nautilus levels. And Maokai is a champion that tosses cards from your deck, and then when you've done that enough times, he also removes the enemy deck. So this card is kind of just used as like a 1 or 2 of in deep decks right now to just have like an alternate win condition if that isn't good enough. It's like, oh, I leveled Maokai, let me just also play the Watery Grave because I drew it and I didn't accidentally toss it out of my deck, and I win the game now. And that's apparently that's like a pretty high win rate. You're just playing like the deck as always with like one of these extra bad boys to just win the game sometimes.
So this is just like reassurance that you win the game. Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll say this, like where I'm coming from in Hearthstone. Generally what happens is Hearthstone has never done it from the bottom of the deck. It's always the top. But you almost look at it as like those cards were at the bottom of your deck. Like you weren't going to draw them anyways. Yeah. So do those 6 cards make a difference? Sometimes you will burn the win condition of your opponent and it ends up being very good. Most of the time it's kind of like, okay, like it is what it is. Like we can just use the cards that we have. So I would be curious to see if this card would actually be played without the Maokai strategy. But because and also in Hearthstone, you don't lose the game if you just get to a fatigue position, right? Like you start increment damage. Yeah. Where like you said in Runeterra, the game's just over. So it's obviously a lot better of a strategy to mill your opponent as fast as possible with that. So that's a fundamental difference. Yeah. I've also noticed that I have never seen. Maybe I'm wrong, but like Hearthstone's like the only game that has like the fatigues. Incremental damage. Like every other game I play, like Magic, if you deck out, you lose. Lorcana, if you deck out, you lose. Runeterra, Yu-Gi-Oh, all of these decks are like, oh, if you run out of cards, you suck. Where Hearthstone was like, oh, okay, let's try a little bit of a different strategy.
I think Hearthstone does it well, though. Honestly, I actually really like it. I enjoy what they do with fatigue there.
Dedicate of the challenge.
Something like that.
Is this like Wukong's family?
It's Wukong fused with Machamp, I think.
No shot. That's you made that up, right?
I mean, he has 4 arms. What else could it be?
4 mana Bilgewater 2/1. When I'm summoned, updraft your hand to grant me +1/+1 for each for each card updrafted and draw 2. When it says updrafted, right? I just gotta double check. You get rid of your whole hand, but then you only draw 2 cards after, or do you draw your whole hand and then draw 2?
No, just 2. You updraft and then you draw 2 from this card's effect.
It's in that Bilgewater deck. So you showed me the Nyla one. She was Bilgewater, right? Hold on.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so this is more playable. If you didn't show me the Nyla, I think this would have been. I was like, why are you playing this? I don't know. I guess if the deck. Okay, but you told me like, well, I guessed it where Nyla was like whatever. So I don't think this is very good either. Like maybe this is like one of the best cards in the deck, but I can't imagine this card's that good. I in Hearthstone, I wouldn't be happy to play it. Actually, would I be happy to play it? 4 mana +1. How many cards do I need for this to be like decent? Say I did 5 cards. That's 5 minute discount. I draw 2, and I also summon this minion as a 7/6 for 4 mana. It's not bad. You just draw after. You just draw the card draw after, and then you're fine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's like probably middle of the pack. It's probably okay. I wouldn't think this is insane.
So there are 4 cards in the game that updraft that came with the expansion, if I'm not missing one, and 3 of them are very good. And this is the 4th one. It's awful. It doesn't see any play.
Oh, yeah. I think the problem is like just getting rid of your entire hand and then only drawing 2 is kind of a bad trade-off, because like we've talked about the big meatballs before, man. Like, yeah, this is a big meatball on turn 4 for sure, but you're also losing so much resources that if this thing dies, like you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah. So one funny thing you can do is you have that Slipstream card that Neela shuffles. You draw 2 cards and they're fleeting. So fleeting is kind of a downside. So what you can do is like, oh, these cards are fleeting. I can't use them right now. Let me just updraft them. So that is like, I think that is supposed to be the combo with Dedicant of the Challengers. Like I have the Slipstream on turn 4. I play for 1 spell mana. Then I play this card. He gets, +2/+2 from that. But yeah, it's still not good enough.
Okay. Cool. I'm gonna count that as I won that, just for the record.
Yeah. You said it was okay, but it's bad, Rara. It's bad.
Proliferating Dark Wraith. What the fuck is this, man? 1 mana 1/1 for Shadow Isles Last Breath. Create in deck an exact copy of your strongest version of this in deck that double the stats of this in the deck. Okay, so you run 3 of these, correct?
Yes.
You play this, it dies. The next one becomes a 2/2.
Yes.
And then that becomes a 4/4, and then that becomes a
8/8,
8/8, and then it keeps going. And it's only the one that's created.
No, all of them. Every single one that you draw from then on, as long as they are in your deck.
Double stats. Oh, this is kind of it. This is kind of fun. That's a fun win condition. Okay, Hearthstone's had this kind of stuff before, and this it usually doesn't get played. But the thing about this one is you get to play this exactly on turn 1. So if you have like 2 in your hand, you're probably pretty stoked. And it's infinite value, man. Infinite value. Oh my god. Like I know there's silences in Runeterra, but this gets so spicy. Oh my god. Imagine dropping a 1 mana 16/16. I mean, the game's probably over at that point if you're playing that thing. This card, I mean, I could see it. I don't know what Shadow Isles is doing, but the good thing about Shadow Isles, from what I remember, is that they want to sacrifice their like units for like a benefit. So you're not actually against like killing your own units with this one, because you want to get them bigger at the start, and bigger is better. And at a certain point, this might be actually just winning you the game, because your opponent has to constantly have answers to this. And also it's pretty good at defending against your opponent at a certain point. But it does take a little bit to scale. So if the card is in your hand, like let's say you have 2 Dark Wraiths in your hand, the other one doesn't get buffed. They have to be in your deck. So you have 1/1.
Yeah, right. They basically only get the stat buffs if you draw them. The new one that's buffed.
I want to say this card's good. I really do, but I think it's bad. Like in Hearthstone, I would want to play this card, but I know deep down it would be bad. Like even if the dream was there, because again, this is just stats, and we talk about big meatballs. Like, this doesn't do anything at a certain point. Like, yeah, a 1 mana 32/32 is pretty sick, I guess. And that you're probably winning the game if you get to that position. But was it really the stat line that won you the game? I don't know. I think it's on the weaker side. I don't think it's like meta defining or anything.
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, you're right. Shadow Isle is very good at creating multiple of these and doubling their stats, but they don't really have a way to end the game with them. So you either need to go to a different region, and then you're like, the Shadow Isle pairing is usually a little bit awkward. Like you want to go to a region and give these Overwhelm or Elusive, and that's like, that makes the deck worse because you want to do different things. And they had another card that says kill an ally to deal their attack power to something else. So like if this was a 32-32, you could literally kill it with your spell and then deal that damage to the enemy nexus to one-shot them. But that card's been rotated, so that's not a thing anymore. That was like the only way for Shadow to win the game with big stats. They're good. They can be big, but they can just be blocked by a 1/1.
Yeah, that's the other problem with that.
Yeah,
the combat. Yeah, dude. Again, this is a content card, and I hope you have you tried to make a deck with this.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure
They pop off.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Many.
Yeah, they've tried that kind of effect in Hearthstone. It just never works out because infinite value is nice, but at some point the stats are irrelevant. Wildfire, 1 mana slow spell for Noxus. Deal 1 to the enemy nexus. Increase by 1 for each other Wildfire you played. Create a Wildfire in your deck. What are they doing this expansion? They just want you to have cards on cards on cards. So Noxus, as far as I remembered, was a pretty aggressive class. So the nice thing about this is if you have 2 Wildfires in your hand, you don't have to draw the other one for it to be upgraded. So this does 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Nexus has 20 life.
Yeah, 20 life. So 6 of these and you kill.
This one's the best one you've shown me so far because it's just direct damage. But it is only to the Nexus, so it doesn't have the versatility of like damaging whatever you want. That would probably be really, really good. Oh my god, I want to say it's good because it's a nice little win condition for you to have in Noxus, but I think like there's probably just better ways of winning the game. Maybe this is like a little bit supplementary to like your win condition. Noxus doesn't really do slow decks, right?
They do with Swain. They had like very they had good control decks. They did.
Yeah, because the reason why I ask is the longer you can make the game go, this is probably better. Because you don't want to put I don't think you want this in an aggro deck because you wouldn't necessarily be happy to top deck this unless like you're really looking for lethal. Because you almost on average you'd rather play like a minion to put more pressure on your opponent, unless there's like a sick amount of draw in the aggro deck. But this is like Bomb Warrior in a sense, right? Like the longer the game goes and the more you can just stop your opponent from winning the game, eventually this is going to win the game for you. It's just about the time it takes for you to get there. But I would assume on average, again, this is probably like too slow. Like there's probably better things for you to do in Noxus unless you can really build around it. But I don't think that would be the case. So I'm going to go with like it's too slow.
This card is extremely good. Unfortunately. Now, I can't believe I'm the one saying this right around, but there was a card in Hearthstone that people have made me aware of called Ignite. And I believe it's almost the exact same thing. Was Ignite good in Hearthstone?
Yeah. So Ignite, the thing about Ignite though was you're putting it in Mage, and Mage has ridiculous ways of drawing mana. Also, Mage the time Ignite was really, really good in the deck was because of the quest line that they added into the game, which was after you beat it, every spell you had +3 spell power. So you got your Ignite super, super big, and then you just kept drawing them over and over again. Not to say Ignite's a bad card whatsoever, but after that deck was nerfed, you didn't really see Ignite too much afterwards.
Okay.
So the reason why, again, it's really hard for me to contextually tell if this card's good or not, because it really depends on the draw that you're giving to Noxus. And so is this played in an aggro or a control deck?
Surprisingly, it's played in an aggro deck, and I said the exact same thing you said. I'm like, this card is probably trash because you want to play this in a control deck, and Noxus just can't really use it. You can't make games go long enough. But apparently, one of the better decks in the game right now is playing Noxus with Ionia, and it's an aggro deck from the Noxus side. So every single Noxus card that you play is just like super aggressive and hits Nexus. And then you're playing Ionia with cards that specifically draw spells. And just say like, if I strike, I draw a spell, or when I'm summoned, draw a spell. And then the only spells you're playing are like Wildfire and another spell that draws spells too. So it's like you get them super consistently.
This one especially is difficult because it really depends on what the deck can give you or what the regions can give you. This one's tough. But yeah, I get like, again, if you can get consistently, absolutely. It'd be the same thing as what did you say, Ignite? Yeah, it'd be the same thing as Ignite. Where like your game plan's really easy to do, and then you just continuously draw them, and then you kill your opponent because like they're just gonna sit there and watch.
Yep. Yeah, that's they just like if they survive one that dealt 6, they're like, oh, I'm healing like for 2 and now I'm at 1 HP. The next one always kills you, even if you heal like 5 and you go to 6. The next one deals 7. So you always die to it. It's just like at some point they just deal so much damage you can't protect yourself from it anymore. Yeah, so that's right now. I think this expansion was a total banger, and Wildfire is like the only thing that makes it less of a banger. So it's like instead of 10 out of 10, really? Wildfire makes it a 9 out of 10, unfortunately, because it's just like
On average, how fast do you die to this? Like what turn would you say?
I mean, it's like it's playing an aggro deck, right? So on average, I would actually say you're dying on turn 5, and if you're not dead yet, the aggro deck can probably like stall for 2 more turns by just blocking down and then playing those spells that draw more spells. which are the Wildfires. Yeah, that they still just win because they deal so much damage.
Yeah, okay. No, that kind of reminds me of the Hearthstone deck. You hate to see it. Well, I mean, to be fair, like I would imagine that Runeterra has something to deal with this.
Funnily enough, skip is actually a very good way to deal with it because you just capture one of their Wildfires, and then because it shuffles more copies into their deck, you can kind of like end part of their high roll.
Here's a quick question for you. How's the Poro King doing? Is he right?
Yeah, he was actually one of the higher win rates. Yeah.
Let's go, dude.
So right before this expansion, he had one of the highest win rates in the game. And I love Poro King because you remember how frustrating I found Set and Karma? Poro King was a hard counter to that deck. So it's just he's a savior. He's a hero.
You're a champion.
Yeah.
Let's go. That's actually sick as fuck. Let's go. Yeah, I was hoping he would be good.